Hey guys, it's Lizzie here. So as I'm sure most of you know, recently I did a foundation first impression and review of the Powder Lock-It foundation from KVD, and about a year ago or so I did a review of the Liquid Lock-It foundation. So I decided today to layer the two together to see how well it works, along with her concealer, her setting spray, her primer and her loose powder. To see if the look works well together, if these products blend well, if they get too cakey, things like that. So yeah, stay tuned to see the sort of challenges I faced along the way and how I found it. I also check in a couple of hours later so you can see how well it's all wearing and things like that. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is the Lock-It primer. So I'm going to do one pump of that on the back of my hand, and I'm going to apply that with my fingers. So this is a really moisturising primer. It does work very well with the Liquid Lock-It foundation because that's quite a drying formula. I have already moisturised my skin as well to add some SPF because that primer doesn't have any. It's sort of, because it's quite hydrating and it's relatively thick, it does feel like it slightly smooths out my skin, but it's not pore filling at all. It doesn't feel silicone-y. I don't even think that's a word. So I'm then going to add the Lock-It foundation over the top, the liquid foundation. This is in shade 42. As you can see, I'm like all the way up to here. I think this is my third one of these, but weirdly it's very hit or miss as to if I like it when it applies. Oh look, not much is coming out. Okay, well that's one pump. Got a clean flat top brush. I'm just going to dot some all over. I really like the colour of it. I've not tried layering these products yet, so I'm quite excited. And as you can see, this blends out relatively easily. The colour is pretty decent, match for me. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about getting a perfect layer with the foundation alone because we are going to be adding concealer and then powder, all of which are quite high coverage. Slightly go over my eyelids. So you could use a sponge for this, but I'm using a brush because it really blends the product into my skin. But you never know, I might use a sponge later. Okay, so that's one thin layer of the foundation. It blends out really well. I think it covers quite well. There are still some bits of redness, but that can be expected. These were really big spots, so you know, for one layer. If I was doing just this foundation, I would build up another layer, but I think for today that would be too much. I'll zoom you in though so you can see each layer as we go. So here's my skin. So there's still some under eye darkness, there's still spots. But overall it has a nice finish to it. I don't think it's too matte at this stage, and the primer really helps with that because I find if I use a drier primer or no primer, it does feel very dry on the skin. It doesn't feel sticky or anything. So for the Lock-It primer, I have two shades. I've got White Out, which we most probably don't need today, and then L1 Neutral, which is the first lightest shade that's coloured. You know, the white comes first. So this is very pale. A bit too pale for me, but that's fine. I'm going to put some under my eyes. And we'll do the spots after. I'm a bit worried it might be too pale for the spots, so I might mix it with the foundation. So I'm going to take a brush. So it does cover very well. It's very light reflecting, this shade. No, not light reflecting. Because it's pale, it brightens. It has the same finish as the foundation. It doesn't set itself as quickly or as matte as the All Nighter concealer, which as we know is my favourite. But there you go, that blends out very well. It brightens, does all the things we need. I find that this concealer does get a bit cakey if I apply too much too quick. I'm going to put a tiny bit on my nose on either side. My nose is still quite red. Just then pushing it in with my finger because my finger's warm and it's always a better texture for makeup, but I don't really like doing things fully with my hands. That's just preference though. You do whatever you want. Okay, we'll try putting some on these spots and we'll see what happens. We'll start with this one because it's easiest to see. If it turns out to be too pale, I can put some foundation over the top. It is lighter. I wonder if there's now a lighter foundation. Because it seems if the concealers go lighter, you would assume there'd be a lighter foundation too. You see, it's not really covered the redness a great deal considering how thick it is, whereas the all-nighter really would have. So we're going to have to do a bit more. You really have to just not blend it out, but then that's why it really needs to match your skin tone, or at least your foundation tone. Which mine doesn't. So yeah, we continue spot concealer and then I might layer on some foundation. The powder will help to correct it too, but yeah, that's fine. I think it's more good for like contouring and highlighting these products as opposed to concealing. They're not quite enough coverage for what I want anyway. I actually think how it looks on the skin, it looks very nice. It doesn't look too cakey at this stage, which is good. So I'll zoom you in again. So I don't know if you'll be able to do this, but already under the eyes it starts to crease straight away, this one, because it doesn't set. It stays this like more luminous finish. You can see the shine there. And on my chin, you see there's just pale sections where the concealer is because it's not quite the right shade, but then there's still redness poking through. So it hasn't fully covered, and considering how thick the product is and how it's advertised as full coverage, you would hope it would. Okay, so I've got half a pump more, so that's literally all I've got left, and a sponge. I'm just going to sponge on another layer of foundation over this. In my head I'm thinking the sponge will disturb the base less than a brush will. I just want those paler bits to not be so prominent. That looks a bit red, doesn't it, there? Okay, I think that's worked well. It hasn't added more coverage, as we can see. The spots are still there, but it's made the colour a bit better. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to try and use this powder, the Lock-It Powder Foundation, as a setting powder. I'm going to use that on most of my face, but I will use the Lock-It loose powder under my eyes and around my nose where there's the most amount of creasing. So, I'm going to get a fluffy brush for that. I'm going to load up the brush already and then blend it out with my finger, just because it's already creased. And really load up on the powder. And then also, whatever's left on the brush, is going to lightly go over the eyelids. Okay, and then around the nose. Again, just blend out anything that's already creased. I'll zoom you in again. This is how we're looking so far. So that powder does get rid of some of the shine. I feel like cat fur on me. The foundation still hasn't set at all anymore, it still feels the same. Now if you've watched my powder foundation review, you know that using the sponge that comes with it is very full on. So I'm going to use a brush. And I'm first just going to almost pat it onto the skin, because I don't like swirling straight away, because I feel it will move everything about. I start to buff it in once there is powder everywhere. Again, it's just preference, you might find another way works better for you. I'm going to make sure I take this under my chin, down my neck a little bit, just so I don't have really full coverage and then nothing. So that is how I'm looking. Very matte, very full coverage. This powder actually settles in really nice and has a sort of satin finish. It doesn't stay dry at all, it wears really well throughout the day, I find. So I'll zoom you in again. So I think my skin's looking very even now. I find with the foundation that it just is quite patchy, whether I apply it with a sponge, with a brush, and any type of brush. There's still bits of red poking through it, sort of, and it's not like it's because it's low coverage, because some bits will be really full coverage and other bits are sort of translucent, like it is just really unblended. And as much as the primer really helps it to go on smoother, it doesn't really help fully. So in comparison to a lighter coverage foundation, you'll get a nice even lighter coverage all over with all the ones I've tried so far. But yeah, this powder really has made all the difference. And on my chin, it's taking down the redness a bit more. Obviously, like the texture, like now you can start to see the shadow behind it. That will never go with makeup, because makeup doesn't, it can't get rid of things that are 3D. But overall my skin's looking so much smoother now because of that powder, very even. So I won't do the setting spray till right at the end, because I'm going to do blush and things like that. Well, I don't have any blush or contour products by Kat Von D. I've got the Saint and Sinner, oh, hit me in the face. Saint and Sinner palette, I'm going to take this one as a highlighter, and then for the rest I'm going to use other products. But this isn't, so it's not really a highlighter, like it's not going to give you that metallic look, it's quite glittery. But I quite like that anyway. It does have a light base, so it will add some light to the area. Don't know, can you see that? Yeah, so. But it's more shimmery. Definitely if you don't like big sparkles, this isn't for you on this area, you know. Just keep it as an eyeshadow. But there we go, that's nice. So I don't know if that's a bit daring trying to use that as a blusher. I think it might go horribly wrong. Yeah, that'll do for now. That's pretty much a full face of Kat Von D. I've used these four, and I will use the setting spray in a bit too. So I'm going to do the rest of my base makeup, and then I will be right back. Okay, so I've just finished my makeup. For my eyes, I just used the peachy shade from the 10-year anniversary palette. I'll show you. This one here, and then just use a more peachy blush as well. So I'm going to use the setting spray. It's running a bit low. I love the smell of this one. We'll add loads because it is quite hydrating. Oh no, look, too much. The actual drops. There we go. So that will settle down in a bit. What I'm going to do is come back in a few hours, let you know how it's wearing, to see if this many layers of makeup is too much, to see if it works out okay. I think it's looking really good. I think it's looking very clear, and it doesn't feel too cakey, and I don't think it looks too cakey at this stage. But we will see what happens. It's quite hot today. See if it wears well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching so far, and I will come back to you after lunch. So it's been about 8 hours since I applied the makeup, and it's looking okay. I think it's got quite a lot shinier. I don't know if you can see, everywhere's a bit more, yeah, oily. And it's only got patchy around my nose and then across my chin. I'll zoom you in a little bit. So I've not touched it up at all, and I have blown my nose, so that is why it's a bit red. I think it's looking fine, it's just very, very shiny. So what I'm going to do is see if I can sort of remove some of the shine and matte it down a bit. But I do think the coverage is still really good, well, the same as it was before. And it's not settled into any fine lines on my forehead or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is take a bit of tissue and just peel it apart. Obviously if you have blotting powder, paper, use that, but I don't have any of that. This will just absorb any excess oil. You can go straight in with your powder, but then it can get a bit cakey. And what I'm going to do is take my powder, not that crazy sponge, we all saw what happened with that last time I used it, and just strategically powder the few bits I need it, which is the centre of the face mostly. So I was wearing a shiny blusher and highlight, so that's going to add to the shine. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. It's pretty red up here, isn't it? Can you see that? I'll go over that as well. There we go, lovely. My lips are looking really like pigmented. So yes, there we are. That is the makeup after a couple of hours. Easy enough to touch up. It's not gone patchy at all. Yeah, I think that worked really well, that layering all the makeup. It didn't at all turn out as sort of cakey and thick as I thought it would. I think it's alright. It feels fine as well. It didn't feel sticky or oily or anything like that. But I have noticed over the last year or so that my skin is getting oilier throughout the day, which is bizarre, but it's something new to get used to. So like I said in the powder foundation review, which is a previous video, I really like this powder. I think it has a nice finish to the skin. I like the coverage it gives and the fact that it's not too drying. And yeah, I guess this is the liquid's pretty much empty now. It was quite a struggle to get those like pumpfuls out, so I think I'll repurchase it. I do prefer the Urban Decay All Nighter foundation, but the Kat Von D one is okay. Yeah. The concealers still hit or miss. I like them best as eyeshadow primers, so I like putting them around my eyes, putting on my eyeshadow, but I find for my blemishes the Urban Decay All Nighter one is better, or one by Revolution, the Camouflage Pro I think it's called. I think that's really good, and the NYX Got You Covered one. This one, like I showed you with the blemishes down here, it just isn't quite as full coverage as what I'm after, so I don't tend to go to these very often. That's why they're still both quite full. So yeah, I hope you found that helpful, and you saw how the products layer on top of each other. I tried to show you as accurately as possible what the makeup looks like on my skin, so you can get the most information about it really. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care, bye.